Oh, dang it. Oh, dang. Oh, dang. Oh, no. Oh, dang. Oh, no. What are we doing here? You guys, welcome to a quick live stream. I'm going this way now, so I don't know where I'm at. But I do know that I'm on chapter 5 of the book that, yes, I'm still doing. I'm still going to have my study group here with you. I'm going to finish all my old projects eventually. I'll come back and do the crystal classes. But yeah, we're going to hang out with my friend Flossie again. I enjoy doing them live because then I don't have to edit the videos. And there's no turning back, right? So if you're live, you can't, you can't go, oh, I didn't like how I said that. No, like we just talk and we just have our little live stream. All right, so to recap for myself, because it's been a while since I've done this, this is the book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. Now, you can find this book all over YouTube. There have been many audiobook readings of it, usually done in a male voice. This book by Divorce Publications put it in a female, my teeth have been whistling all this week, female version that speaks to women. So it changed up the words a little bit, and I really liked it. So I highly recommend it to all my lady friends to check out the complete writings of Florence Scovel Shinn for women. All right, so the last time, I don't know, we did chapter 4 apparently, right? That makes sense. We did chapter 4 last time. It was the law of non-resistance. And it's been like probably a month since we hung out. We're going to do 2 laws tonight, the law of karma and the law of forgiveness, according to my friend Flossie. Now, she croaked a long time ago, I think in 1945. But she was a sassy broad, and I really enjoy her energy. So, hello, welcome. We're going to do the law of karma and forgiveness. The law of karma, like, I think a lot of people are like familiar with that word, right? Like karma, gonna bite you in the ass, like that kind of vibe. And that's kind of true. Whatever you put out, you get back. Whatever you reap, you sow. So here's my notes, and I will put these on herboracle.blogspot.com, and I'll take pictures and stuff. You can visit me there. Is this light a little too bright? Do I look? Yeah, it is. See, look, I do have skin tone. Oh, not anymore. All right, so everybody, you ready? The law of karma and the law of forgiveness. So basically, the game of life is a game of a boomerang. Did you ever have the experience of throwing a boomerang? Ooh, brighter. Much love to Australia. I had a boomerang once. We'll just go underdeveloped here. That's fine. A boomerang. You throw it. If you do it right, it comes back to you. If you do it right. You could also say the game of life is a game of throwing the ball on the wall. If you throw a ball on the wall, it comes back to you. The harder you throw it, the quicker it comes back. So remember, all your thoughts, deeds, and words will return to you sooner or later, okay? What goes around comes around. What you reap, you sow. And the thing is, for those of us on a spiritual journey, the higher in consciousness that you go up, the higher in consciousness you are, the quicker the return of karma. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you were like literally thinking, you're just thinking shit about something or someone, and then you stub your toe, like in the middle of that thought. Has that ever happened to you? Like, oh my gosh, like there I was, like totally off track. Law of karma got my attention real quick. Like I kind of think of that scenario, but basically the more you know, the more you are responsible for. So the more you know, the more you're responsible for. Kind of sounds like Spider-Man type talk, but that's what it boils down to. So I'm just going to go over my notes real quick and then tell you a few things in the book. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much. Let me know that you are here. So freedom from all unhappy conditions comes through a knowledge of spiritual law. So that's one thing that I noted in the chapter 5 of this book, that, you know, as you understand spiritual law, that's where you're going to find your freedom from all unhappy conditions. One thing to remember is to always ask right. There's a wrong way to ask. There's a right way to ask. Only demand what is yours by divine right under grace. So if you can remember to do that, only ask for what is yours under divine right under grace. So that's called asking right. I'm banging the book because it's so important. That's called asking right. If you don't ask right, and I'll open up the book and tell you a few stories, scenarios that she gave, examples. If you don't ask right, you could get what you want, but it ain't going to be in a very pleasant way. Remember that lady that I told you about? She really wanted flowers. She really wanted flowers. Where are my freaking flowers? And then a pot of geraniums fell off a patio and hit her on the head. Well, there you go, honey. There's your flowers, but not exactly under grace, was it? So remember to ask right. Be like, I only want what is divinely mine under grace. All right, so a couple other things that I wrote down on the notes is how to be rich, like a little tips to be rich. Flossie says that you need to be rich in your consciousness. So before you can be rich in your life, unless your name is rich, be rich in consciousness. So do you feel wealthy? Do you feel rich? Do you feel abundant? Do you feel luxurious? Are you appreciating everything that you have? I mean, you're like, I don't know, am I? Well, if you're not, you're in the poor man mindset. You're always saying you're broke. You don't feel like you have enough money. You could have $3,000 in the bank and you'd be like, I don't have any money. Like, the hell you don't. Like, there's some money, right? So anyways, to be rich in consciousness. The second thing she talked about was being orderly. Like, order is the first law or rule of heaven. And so, like, if your house is in disarray and not orderly, you're keeping wealth away from you. So that's what she would tell her clients, and they'd go home and they'd clean their house and they'd put it in order. They'd be like, all right, fine. And then a lot of their abundance blocks, poof, there they went. So be rich in your consciousness, be orderly, and then expect prosperity. Expect that money to come from you. Spend fearlessly and keep your perfect faith. Faith holds the vision steady. So also in the book, she's like, hey, no hoarding, no saving, and know that God is your supply. So these are just notes that, like, if I don't have time to read the whole book, but I feel like I just need to, like, remind myself of some good things to do and not do. I like notes. I like big notes, and I cannot lie. You other nerds can't deny. All right, so the law of grace, aka the law of forgiveness, they're basically the same thing. So you can call on the law of forgiveness if you've done wrong, okay? And you can call on the law of grace to exempt you from lower laws, is what I understood. So anyways, this is chapter 5. It says in this book that you can attain a continued state of bliss. A continued state of bliss awaits you who has overcome mortal thought. So she talks a lot about mortal thoughts, and what would those be? Mortal thoughts are thoughts about sin, sickness, and death. Everyone's loud around me, but I told them this would be quick. All right, so you overcome mortal thoughts about sin, sickness, death. Okay, those are mortal thoughts, and if you can overcome them, then you will be in a continued state of bliss. What else you need to do is stamp your mind with conviction of eternal youth, of eternal life. And as you stamp your mind, remember, your subconscious mind only does what you tell it to do. It is power without direction, and it just carries out your orders. So if you are telling your subconscious mind that, I am eternally youthful, I have eternal life, you can stamp out the mortal thoughts by stamping in, this is terrible English, stamping in your eternal thoughts. That's what I get. Also, she says, work under your God mind, which is your superconscious. All right, so anyways, these will totally be available to anybody who wants to take a peek at them. I don't know if I'll try to put them on right after this. What else am I doing? Sleeping? Why would I do that? herboracle.blogspot.com. All right, so anyways, this book is awesome. If you can listen to the audiobook, cool. It's almost as awesome as my llama napkin. Don't be jealous. Now, let me see what else it says. I have things highlighted to the max in Chapter 5, the law of karma and the law of forgiveness. What you sow, you shall reap. So remember that you will only receive that which you give. Remember that. Like I said, the game of life is a game of boomerangs. So everything you think and do and feel and be, you will be returned to you sooner or later. With astounding accuracy. That was pretty cool that she said that. So anyways, she gave a little example of one of her friends who said, like, her karma's always returned to her. Like, she'll be having dinner with her aunt or her mom, and she'll be thinking, like, oh my God, Mom, like, shut up, And so one night, it was with her aunt, she said, please, no more talk. I wish to eat in peace. Right? So she said that. It was kind of nasty, wasn't it? She said that to her aunt. Well, the next day, she was having lunch with somebody, and no joke, they pretty much said the exact same thing to her. And she was like, oh, dang, So it was a good lesson because this woman was high in consciousness. She didn't realize that it was going to start being returned that quickly to her. So if you are moving up in your consciousness, you're going to notice the law of karma, like, whoa, dang, that came back pretty dang quick. Try not to swear here. But it might be good to emphasize how quickly the return of karma is going to become for you the higher you go in your consciousness. It just is. It returns more quickly to one on the mental plane if you are increasing your consciousness. So, not to sound like Spider-Man, but the more you know, the more you are responsible for. And a person with knowledge of spiritual law, let's say a person who knows the spiritual law but decides to not practice it, you suffer greatly in consequence, okay? Because it's like you should know better. And once you learn things, you really can't unlearn them. And yeah, that reminds me one time, I don't know who said it, but they were really touching on the topic that, as light workers, it was the topic, light workers who know they're light workers but decide not to do their light work. It was basically like, prepare for your consequence. Like, not in a threatening way, but like, you can't back down after you know things. So anywho's, another cool thing that she talked about was if you're having trouble understanding the Bible or it just doesn't sit right, she suggested, like, instead of reading the word Lord, substitute the word law. So in place of Lord, put law. So instead of saying the fear of the Lord, you say the fear of the law. So anyways, if we read the word law, if we read the word Lord as law, too many L words, it will make many passages in the Bible much clearer. Like you're like, oh. So anyways, if you're a spiritual woo woo person like me and you just really haven't like connected with the Bible too much, or like you're like, what the heck are they talking about? If you substitute the word like law instead of Lord, you're like, oh, okay, I can see how that goes with this other stuff. Like, let's see, she gives an example. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. How about saith the law? It is the law that takes vengeance, not God. God sees a woman perfect, created in God's own image, imagination, and given power and dominion. So it's not that like the Lord is condemning. Honey, that's just the law doing its job, right? So we have spiritual laws, we have universal laws that work just as accurately as the law of gravity. And once you understand that, you can start to get them to work for you. So this is a really good book. It's an easy read. Let's see what else I highlighted. Skipping down to the blue highlighted. I did say this already. So we see freedom from all unhappy conditions comes through knowledge, a knowledge of spiritual law. So the more you learn about spiritual laws and apply them to your life, you can free yourself from pretty much every unhappy condition. Yeah, and when you obey the laws of the universe, you know, just like the law of electricity must be obeyed before it becomes a servant. And just like electricity, if you like don't respect it, it can become a deadly foe. So with the laws of the mind. So you can either get the laws of the mind or the universe or whatever you want to call it, metaphysical laws, you can get them to work for you or against you, just kind of like electricity. So she has lots of examples here about that in the book, and a really crazy example actually about a woman who was really, she had a good, strong personal will. So that means like whatever she thought manifested pretty quickly. Well, she really wanted to own a house that belonged to an acquaintance, and she often made like herself imagine her living in that house, and she wanted that house. And this story went on to say that like in the course of time, the owner died and this woman did move into this house. And then she talked to Flossie that several years afterwards, this woman came into spiritual knowledge, talked to Flossie and was like, yo, Flossie, do you think I had anything to do with that woman's death? Like the more she thought about it, she was like, oh my God, did I like do that? And Flossie said, yeah. She said, yeah, your desire was so strong, everything made for it, but you paid your karmic debt. So this woman got this house, but then soon after she got the house, her husband died. And then the house was a white elephant on her hands for years. So it was a very extreme story, but it was a good story to make sure that you say you want things under grace that are divinely right. So Flossie coached her a little bit. First she said, listen, that is true. However, this woman could not have been affected if she had been positive in the truth, right? So it's like, listen, Flossie was kind of just messing with her a little bit. You know, everybody has their own, you know, will and stuff. So it's a good reminder to stay in your truth. And the woman, instead of just like desiring this house of her acquaintance, should have said, okay, she could still feel desire for the house, but what she should have said was, infinite intelligence, give me the right house, as charming as this house, but I want the house that is mine by divine right. So it's like, yes, you can see what you want, but make sure you're always adding in there. Make sure you're always asking right in the right way. Always saying like, you know what, I want that. Like, I want that guy, but you don't really want that guy. You want the guy that is yours by divine right, or the house, or whatever it is that you want. So anyways, the divine selection would have given perfect satisfaction and brought goodwill to all. So make sure you're working with divine selection and you're working with divine pattern. So anyways, yeah, that was the whole ask right section in this book. And you should only demand what is yours by divine right under grace. And then say things to yourself like, if this house is mine, if this house that I desire is mine, I cannot lose it. You could say that about a person too. If you have your eye on somebody, if this person is that I desire is mine, then I cannot lose this person. If it is not mine, give me its equivalent. So if maybe it's a car, maybe that's a safer manifestation actually. If this car I desire is mine, I cannot lose it. If it is not, give me its equivalent or better under grace. So anyways, there was a lot of great things that I underlined in this chapter. And yeah, just kind of like today I was at Walmart pickup and I placed my order, but I allow substitutions, right? So in your own personal manifestations, allow substitutions as well. Flossie also said anything forced into manifestation through personal will always ill-got and has ever bad success. So what that means is you don't want to just be pushing things into place and forcing things to happen that are not part of your divine plan and your divine will. What you want to do is let the universe orchestrate for you what is divinely yours, what is meant to be, and let it develop and manifest under grace. So you kind of have to put your faith in something bigger than you. And it's like that statement, my will be done, not thine. So you'll always get what you want and what you desire if you will relinquish your personal will and thereby enabling infinite intelligence to work through you. Do you know what that means? That means basically get in the passenger seat, honey. God's driving. The universe is driving. Your higher self is driving. Like, let your higher God mind do the work more than your little mortal human mind. If you can get into that mindset more often, then what you will for will be done. But it's not because you're making anything happen. You're allowing things to happen. So this is why I love Flossie, you guys, because she just gets right to the point. What else did she say that was so cool? She did have a really good story that like all parents might want to read, or anybody who like has somebody in their life that's like, okay, she used an example of a mother who came to her, like she's like so freaked out, like her daughter wanted to take like a rebellious trip to Europe, right? And the mom was just like, oh my God, like I want to forbid her to go, but she just wants to go more now that I told her I didn't want to go. And this is what Flossie said to the mom. She said, listen, honey, you are forcing your personal will on your daughter, which you have no right to do. Okay, so it's a good reminder that like we don't have any right to tell anybody else what to do ever. And Flossie reminded her that the mother's fear of the trip was only attracting it more, because what for a woman attracts what she fears. So like the mother's like basically like with her fear and not wanting for this trip to manifest, she's making that trip manifest even faster. So the mom was like, oh, okay. So this is what else Flossie said. She said, let go and take your mental hands off and put it in God's hand. And she was like, okay. So it's like, listen, back off of this situation. It ain't none of your business, and you're making it worse. It's out of your hands, right? It's off my hands, right? You ever have that like expression come through you, like you're like, I'm done with it. It's out of my hands. It's out of your hands. It's in God's hands now. And this is what she said, she told this woman to say. I put this situation in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. So feel how good that feels. I put this situation in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. If this trip is the divine plan, I bless it. And if it is not, like I'm so thankful if it is not, right? If this trip is the divine plan, I bless it and no longer resist. But if it is not divinely planned, I give thanks that it is now dissolved and dissipated. So it's kind of like, hey, if it's supposed to happen, I bless it, okay? I bless it. If it's not the divine plan, then I give thanks that it is like dissolved and dissipated and off the table. Do you know? Like, good, get it out of here. So anyways, the woman followed Flossie's advice, and in a couple days, her daughter just said, you know what, Mom, I've given up the trip. And the situation returned to its native nothingness. It just dissolved. And went back into its native nothingness. But everyone had to get their nose out of the business that was not theirs first and give it over to infinite love and wisdom, and then just be like, yo, if it's part of the divine plan, then I bless it. And if it's not, then I give thanks that it is now dissolved and dissipated. So you want things to be divinely planned. You want things to happen the way they're supposed to happen. And if they're not, then let them be dissolved. Right? If people are supposed to be in your life, if people are supposed to be in your life, then bless them and be thankful for them. And if they're not part of your divine plan, then ask infinite spirit, love, and wisdom to get them the F out. And give thanks that those relationships are now dissolved and dissipated. So it is in that learning to stand still. And sometimes it's really hard to do nothing and put it into God's hands or the universe's hands. I love infinite love and wisdom. I think that's awesome way to put it. It is difficult to stand still, though, and that's what we talked about last time, the law of non-resistance. So review if you need to. But yeah, she went on to talk more about sowing and reaping, and she ended talking about money. She reminded us in this chapter that the law and the universe doesn't know anything about jokes. So if you're always joking that you're broke, the universe doesn't know that you're joking. The universe takes everything very, very literal. So evaluate how you joke. Broke as a joke, right? Try to get that self-talk out. Shut up, quit saying that. You can call on the law of forgiveness to neutralize any situation, and that's where we ended most of this chapter, talking about the law of forgiveness. So think about that. If you done messed up and you thought some thoughts or made some manifestations and you know it, call on the law of forgiveness to neutralize this situation. It's very handy while we're in a state of practicing. So the law of forgiveness, let's see, what did I highlight here? It says Christianity is founded upon the law of forgiveness. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the karmic law, and the Christ within each person, each woman, is her redeemer and salvation from all inharmonious conditions. So next chapter, I'm actually really excited about next chapter. I was like, Sadie, you better do chapter 5 because I know you really want to do chapter 6. Chapter 6 is going to be, I love it. It's called Casting the Burden, but we can't go there yet until we finish this one. So here's what you can say. Let's see. So this woman thought she lost $20, and here's what Flossie said to her, and we can apply it then to ourselves. Flossie said, Infinite Spirit, we call on the law of forgiveness and give thanks that she is under grace and not under law and cannot lose this $20, which is hers by divine right. So anyways, and then, she told her to go back to the bank and fearlessly tell them that a fake 20 was given to her by mistake And yeah, they figured it all out and they fixed it and everything was good. So it's just good to know that you have the law of forgiveness to rub out your mistakes. And that's why knowledge of the law is really going to serve you in your life, because it's going to give you more power. All right, so we talked already about if you want to be rich, if you desire riches, you need to be rich in your consciousness. Do that first. If you wish to be rich, what was the second thing? Do you remember? You need to be orderly. So people with great wealth are orderly, and order is heaven's first law. So you'll never become rich with a burnt match in the pincushion. Now, who the hell even knows what that means? But I think it means that, like, you need to get rid of your crummy stuff, clean up your house, put everything in its place, a place for everything, get everything in order, and then let the abundance flow in. But yeah, you got to have a good sense of humor about it. Just laugh and clean your house and put it in order and test it out. Try it out. Rearrange furniture. Straighten out every single drawer that you own. Clean your rugs. Just make everything shiny as it can be. I know you can't polish a turd. Trust me, I know. But just do your best and then see what manifests. What else can we say? Know that God is your supply. And also know that hoarding and saving actually might lead to loss. So if you're being very stingy with your money, you're hoarding it, you're saving it for something bad to happen, that means you're planning on something bad to happen. Do you see how ridiculous that is? So spend your money. Do it. Go spend your money. Read the book first. Use your discernment. But yeah, she says go spend your money. Let's see what else I wrote down. Go buy the coat that you want. But that requires having complete and perfect faith. If a woman ignores these leadings to spend or to give, the same amount of money will go in an uninteresting or unhappy way. All right, so if you're like, oh, I really love that, maybe I should buy that $24.95 Oracle deck for myself. But I'm like, no, I can't afford it. What she's saying is the law of karma in return, like within so much time, some $24.95 random fee will hit me. Like, I should have just spent that money on what I wanted. I was supposed to spend money, and I didn't. And so she's saying then that same amount of money is still going to leave you. So it's like an inflow and an outflow. Like, you got to spend money, you got to bring in money. You got to spend money and let money roll in. Like, if you want more money to roll in, you kind of have to spend money. I know, it ruffles everybody's feathers. But anyways, she gave an example about a woman who was like, listen, family, we're too broke to have Thanksgiving this year. And so she decided that her family could not afford a Thanksgiving dinner, and instead they were going to save that money. Well, a few days later, somebody broke into her room and took from her dresser drawer pretty much the same exact amount of money as the dinner would have cost. So she should have just spent the damn money and baked a freaking pumpkin pie. Is there really a pumpkin shortage? My mom said that today, and I just felt like my mom needs to get off Facebook. All right, so anyways, another thing that I highlighted was the law always stands back of a woman who spends fearlessly and with wisdom. So I just feel like every time I open this book, it wants me to buy an oracle deck. Anyway, she gave another example of like, you know, it's like, listen, just spend the money. So an aunt had her nephew in the toy store, and the nephew was like, oh, I want this toy. And she remembered Flossie's teaching and the laws of the universe, and she's like, you know what? I'll just buy him the toy because this is clearly a sign that the universe wants me to spend some money. So she bought the toy, and then she literally went out into the street, and there was the money laying on the street, the exact amount of the money she paid for the toy. So people are having like their own little mini miracles in this book, and I think that's cool. Bless you. A woman's supply is inexhaustible and unfailing when fully trusted. So then we go back a few chapters to all that talk about perfect faith. If you have perfect faith and fully trust the universe, fully trust infinite love and wisdom and God and source, then you will be backed up. Your supply, and what's your supply? God, will be inexhaustible. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For faith holds the vision steady. So anyways, it just goes on and on and on, and I love this book. One more thing about all that. It was saying something more about the law of karma. Jesus Christ brought the good news, the gospel, that there was a higher law than the law of karma. I don't know. Did it say that? I don't know. But anyways, and that law transcends the law of karma. Well, that would make sense because they're talking about the law of grace. So yeah, the law of grace transcends the law of karma. The law of grace and the law of forgiveness is the same thing. It is the law that frees a woman from the law of cause and effect, the law of consequence, under grace and not under law. So I use that for one of my affirmations, which I will read to you in a minute. We are told on this plane, this physical plane that we live on, reside around, I don't know, a woman reaps where she has sown. The gifts of God are simply poured out upon her. All that the kingdom affords is hers. So that's what I was talking about when I said this continued state of bliss awaits the woman who has overcome the mortal thought. So Flossie does end on a pretty deep note in this chapter. She basically says, in mortal thought there is tribulation, but JC, Jesus Christ, said, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. And if you're doing Tina Louise Spalding's 40 Days and 40 Nights with Jesus, I mean, that's what he basically talks about in those channelings when he's talking about, I guess, his resurrection, that he overcame the world, right? He was demonstrating through the crucifixion that he don't need this body. Jesus always wants me to portray him as a thug. I don't know why. Mortal thought is what? Sin, sickness, death. Jesus saw their absolute unreality and said, sickness and sorrow shall pass away, and death itself, the last enemy, be overcome. So now we know through metaphysics and scientific standpoints, and according to Flossie, that death can be overcome by stamping the subconscious mind with the conviction of eternal youth and eternal life. The subconscious mind is that power without direction, and it just carries out orders without questioning. So if you continue to stamp the mind with the thoughts that you want, it just follows those orders. Now, working under the direction of the superconscious, which is what? The God mind, or the Christ within us all, that's how you get the resurrection of the body to be accomplished. So anyways, this is just what Flossie said. A woman will no longer throw off her body in death. Instead, it will be transformed into the body electric. I love it. Body electric, right? Now we call it the light body, but back in the 20s and 40s, they were calling it the body electric. Walt Whitman termed that, for Christianity is founded upon the forgiveness of sins and an empty tomb. So anyways, it was a really cool chapter. Funny enough, I have a book that has several Walt Whitman poems in it, and I don't like them. like not really a fan of Walt Whitman in that book, but I mean, I do like The Body Electric. I think that's cool. And I also think that it's cool that we do detach from the body more, and understand that it in itself is a projection of the ego, and that is a mortal thought. So a woman cannot force the external to be what she is not. So whatever you have in your life, you have to be a vibrational match to it, and you can't force riches and wealth if you are not that yourself. So if you want to attract riches, then be rich yourself. I cannot force the external to be what I am not. If I cannot make things happen anymore if I am not a vibrational match to it. Here's another good, I'll leave you with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 affirmations. I put this situation in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. If it is the divine plan, I bless it. If not, I give thanks that it is now dissolved. So if it's my divine plan, I bless it. If it's in your divine plan, I bless it. If it's not, then I give thanks that it is dissolved. Right? Like, let it be gone if it's not part of my divine plan at this point. And if it is, well, I guess I bless it. Infinite Spirit, I call on the law of forgiveness. I give thanks I am under grace, not under law. And this situation is now neutralized. So if you flub up and you need to call on the law of forgiveness, you may do so and give thanks that this situation is now neutralized, right? No harm is done, right? It's like taking it back and declaring that you are under grace, not under karmic law. Amen. Might need to know it if you're constantly screwing up. Another thing, I am under grace. Divine ideas never conflict. My calls come at the right time. Infinite intelligence arranges everything. This was from last chapter. This was from last chapter. I went back. I liked it. I forgot to write it down, and I think this one, if I'm remembering correctly, I wrote it down after the broadcast last time. Also this one, I really enjoyed this one, and I felt like this was really beneficial to us, especially if we're being provoked, if people are annoying us, or if we're just being triggered, or, we want to like stay more in a grounded, balanced, neutral position without reacting. An affirmation that we can say to ourselves is, none of these things move me. I am undisturbed. None of these things move me. I am undisturbed. So basically that just means keep on trucking, doing your own thing, and don't let anything or anyone affect you, unless you want them to. And lastly, this is my favorite. I reap what I sow. I plant what I want to know. I harvest what I love to grow. So it's really important right now for everyone to be planting the seeds that they want to grow. If you don't want weeds in your garden, quit planting those seeds. If you don't want negativity in your garden, then quit planting negative seeds. Whatever is growing in your garden, you put there. Whatever is manifesting in your life, you brought it to you. So call on the law of forgiveness, like whoopsie daisy, I didn't realize that. I call on the law of forgiveness to neutralize what I have manifested. I am now under the law of grace, not under karmic law. And I reap what I sow now. I plant what I want to know. What do you want to know about? What do you want to connect with? What kind of experiences do you want? Those are the seeds you want to plant in your life. And then give thanks. I harvest what I love to grow. You just start pumping out the love. So anyways, that's it, y'all. That is chapter 5. And now I can get excited about chapter 6. But it took me a long time to get around to chapter 5, didn't it? So anyways, thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching the replay. And yeah, I'll get these up on herboracle.blogspot.com. What did we cover tonight? Lots of stuff. The law of karma and the law of forgiveness. Basically, if you couldn't absorb much of that, just remember that all your thoughts, deeds, and words will be returned sooner or later, just like a boomerang. And yeah, things are going to start manifesting quicker now, so you better clean up your act. All right, thanks so much for hanging out, you guys. I'll see you again so soon.